Well, welcome to Age Friendly. We are in a series and we're talking about the end of life and what you have to do for advanced planning. And we're talking today about powers of attorney. So certainly, hopefully you're going to watch. Megan Stuckey is my guest, and she is a staff lawyer with the Advocacy North for elders, seniors, and elders and seniors out of the Sudbury Community Legal Clinic. And Megan, thanks for staying. And we're all summer. We're going to be talking all summer about wills and powers of attorney, but so really important. And when we're talking about powers of attorney, people sometimes think about that, but they don't really understand. And there's really two powers of attorney. So let's talk about the fact that there is two.
There's two of them.
Yeah.
Yes, and they are different from your will as well. So
Correct.
We always think your will is for after I've died.
Yes.
My power of attorney is for while I'm alive.
Correct.
But I need some help. And so
Right.
the two you have is you've got your power of attorney for personal care. That's all of those basic healthcare decisions. Where am I going to live? How am I going to get food? Picking someone to make those decisions for you. And the second is your power of attorney for property. And same with the will. When we say, well, I don't have property, you have property. You have a bank account. You have insurance that you pay. You have rent. You have bills. So when we do a power of attorney for property, you're picking the person who's going to manage all of the daily things that you take care of yourself, but they step in when you can't do it anymore.
One of the things with the power of attorney, you're still alive.
Yes.
But you have somebody else now making your decisions.
Exactly.
That's really important. That you have to find somebody that, I might not like everything that they decide, but you've got to have talked to them about this. This is not something you just announce somebody that you're going to do the power of attorney for me. You need to make sure they know what you want.
We are always picking somebody who we trust 100%, and that we also feel comfortable communicating with, because they need to know all the intimate details of your life. If they're going to make decisions in the way that you would have done it yourself, you're just not able to do it anymore. So we're not picking someone who's a bull, who's going to run in and take charge, and this is how it's getting done. We want to pick someone who's saying, hey, Mom, what do you think about this? I know you're not capable anymore, but let's still talk to you about each of the decisions. And hey, I know you wanted to get your credit card down, so we're going to keep doing that plan. And I always think they're gentle, they're strong, but they're keeping you involved in the conversation the whole time.
One of the things I was doing an elder abuse presentation, and this came up, and one of the things I said to it was a young person, like in their 20s, and they said, oh, I don't need a power of attorney. I said, but you have no idea what's going to happen to you when you walk out the door here today. Like, you might need a power of attorney because you might have an accident and you can't function for yourself. Then what are you going to do? Who's going to do that for you? So do you have to have a power of attorney earlier in life, or do you just wait till towards the end?
I think this is an emergency document. So this is a document that I honestly think they should be talking about it in high school. So that when you turn 18, start thinking about, who do I want to make decisions for me if I have an emergency? Because at the end of the day, if I end up in a coma and I'm in the hospital,
that's correct.
Someone can't just access my bank account. The bank's going to tell them, we don't know who you are. We're not going to listen to you. They need to have a document that says they're allowed to do this. And there's two ways to get that document. Either you've signed a power of attorney yourself, or your family is applying through the court and having to get a guardianship application to take over your property. One is very simple, one is very complicated.
When we talked in another program about the wills, is a power of attorney, does that have to be done by a legal person, or can you do that yourself?
It does not need to be done by a lawyer. Now, I'm always going to recommend get legal advice, because these are very powerful legal documents. Right? This isn't a grocery list you're making. But at the end of the day, I don't want that to be a barrier to making the document. There are free kits available. The Ministry of the Attorney General has a free power of attorney kit. Guided Pathways by Steps to Justice, they have a free power of attorney kit. It's something you can put in place without getting a lawyer. Just make sure you understand the document. What I don't want is someone just being handed a kit and saying, all right, I'll sign here, and they don't understand what kind of authority they've given to someone and when it's going to be effective.
That's really, really important. Now, what about witnesses for a power of attorney? You don't have to have for a will. Good if you do, but you don't have to have. Is that the same for a power of attorney?
Power of attorney, you absolutely need 2 witnesses.
Oh, you do. You must have 2.
You must have 2
witnesses. Oh, that's good to know.
Yes.
Okay.
And it's the same essential rules, right? So if you're naming an attorney, that's the person who's making the decisions for you, they can't be your witness. And their spouse or partner cannot be your witness. You can't have your own spouse or partner as a witness, and you can't have your children as a witness. So really, again, we're looking at related family, we're looking at friends, neighbors, and your witness doesn't have to sit down and read the whole document and argue about it with you, but they need to know what you're signing. Because if something ever happened, if someone challenged the document, they're going to call your witness, and your witness needs to be able to say, yes, I was with Megan. I saw her signing a power of attorney. She was conscious. She knew what she was doing. Versus if they don't know what you were signing, they can't help you.
One of the things, I am a power of attorney for a friend who unfortunately has dementia. And the first thing that when she had to go into a long-term care situation is and I had to take over everything, like finances, property, the whole works. And that was what they asked me, do you have a power of attorney? And because I'm making all her decisions for her now. It's an onerous job in the fact of it's very, I'm not quite sure even how to explain it, but to think that you are making decisions for another person who's still living, by the way, but you have to do it with it knowing that that's what she probably would want to have done.
Yes.
And that's why you need to talk about it ahead of time.
Absolutely.
With that person.
And I always say, it's called a power of attorney. But at the end of the day, you're giving someone authority to make decisions, and you're giving them responsibility. This isn't just handing someone power. You're saying you are responsible to me. You're responsible to the people that I take care of, but you have the authority to act so that no one can just say, you're not allowed to do this.
And so it's really valuable that you have those in place. Really, really valuable.
I think it's hugely valuable. I think it's actually so underlooked nowadays. It's probably more valuable than your will because it's who's taking care of you while you're alive.
That's right, and it encompasses everything. Like as I said, for my friend, like her property, her bank account, all of those kinds of things. You got to really decide how you're going to do it with the intent that she understands that you. Well, she did it one time anyway. Know what you were going to do with it if it actually had to happen. Yeah.
Exactly, and knowing what needs you have, what medical needs, what debts you have, so they know what they need to take care of.
Yeah, and we have to really think about these kinds of things. And unfortunately, this happens to people that are young, and then that they don't think about this at this point in time in their lives. Oh, they're going to live forever, but unfortunately, it doesn't always happen that way. Meaning having an accident or something.
Well, I find people aren't even talking about them.
No.
When you're 18, who's talking about a power of attorney?
No.
We all know what a will is,
yeah.
But we don't always know what a power of attorney is. And so it's important to have these conversations with our children, our grandchildren early on, because it's something that is needed. It's something that people can't just always step in and make decisions.
Right.
And so making that document early on, you can change it afterwards.
Sure.
You're not stuck with it. It's your document. If you don't like it, get rid of it.
And start all over again.
Yeah.
We need to do that. One of the things I'm going to talk about in our next segment is a little bit about where you can actually get the kits and things like that too. So, because not everybody can afford to go to a lawyer. We know that. And, but it's so important to have a power of attorney for finance as well as for property and health. So we need the 2 documents and have that in place. So Megan, this is great. We'll have another segment and we'll be talking about actually how you actually can have a kit and make a power of attorney and do it yourself at home if you wanted to do, and what you need to do with that. So, Megan, thank you. Age Friendly, and we're talking to Megan Stuckey about the fact of having a power of attorney. And we talked a little bit earlier, Megan, about the fact there's property and finance, and then there's health. Do you need to have a power of attorney, the same person for both of those, or can it be separate? How does that work?
Can absolutely be separate.
Okay.
I would say these are your documents, so you pick the people that you're most comfortable with. So when we're talking about your power of attorney for personal care, you want to pick someone who you're comfortable talking about rashes and infections and, you know, some of those messy things that happen in life. And
Right.
where am I going to live and what kind of food am I going to eat? Do I have an allergy? Someone who understands all of that and that you are comfortable with. For your attorney for property, you're picking someone who is good with money.
Right.
They don't need to be in investments, but someone who pays their rent on time, someone who doesn't have huge amounts of debts. They don't have issues that are causing them to go further into debt. So you pick someone who you trust 110% there, and they can be different people. I have lots of people who say, you know what, I'm going to name my spouse or my partner, they're my attorney, but if they pass away before me, or if they become sick, then I'm going to name my eldest daughter. She's in charge of my property. And, you know, my youngest son, he's now going to handle my personal care decisions. And as long as they get along,
Right.
that works out great. But you're picking one person to be in charge of each. Or you could have the same person across the board.
And it doesn't matter. Can I just tie that into wills? You don't have to have, you could have 3 different people
Yes.
between 2 powers of attorney and a will. They could be 3 different people.
Absolutely, they can.
Okay.
Right. So you can have, you know, if you have 3 children or
Right.
3 brothers and sisters, you could name one person for each and have a substitute. Or sometimes people name one person to do all 3 roles. So it really is, who do you think is going to do a good job at that specific role? Because each role has different needs and different requirements.
One of the things I'm going to, because we've already talked about it, but I think it's important at this point in time, those 3, say it is 3 different people, they need to know that they are going to be your executor as well as your power of attorney. Because if all of a sudden you pass away or you're sick and you're in a coma and somebody says, who's the power of attorney, they don't even know, that's not a good plan. They need to know this ahead of time.
They need to know. Most people are not walking around downtown with their power of attorneys in their pocket, right? You might have something in your wallet that has a phone number. But if you're in an emergency, no one knows who to call or who actually has authority. So you should tell your attorneys because, one, you need their permission because they can say, I don't want to do this job. I'm busy or, you know, for whatever reason. And then you're stuck. Or they need to know, wait, I'm the attorney. I'm supposed to rush in. I'm supposed to do this. And there's not that confusion of, well, who's in charge? Who gets to make decisions?
Yeah, I just wanted to say that because I think it's really important. But the other thing I want to know is how do you don't have to have this done legally. So if I'm at home watching the program today and say, okay, that's fine, I'm going to get a power of attorney, how do I go about doing that?
Yes. So at the end of the day, it's a legal document,
Yes.
right? And so it has requirements about how it has to be made, but it doesn't have to be done by an actual lawyer. It doesn't need to be witnessed by a lawyer and doesn't need to be notarized. So there's a few different options. If you don't want to go to a lawyer, the Ministry of Attorney General has a power of attorney kit. It's just a little 1-page document for your power of attorney for personal care, 1 page for the property one. So you fill out the 2 separate ones,
Right, yeah.
and you get your witnesses to sign it. Those are available online, and many services also have them available. If you ask, they might say, hey, we've got a copy, here you go. The other option that I always like to turn to is Guided Pathways. This is made by Steps to Justice. It's designed by lawyers in Ontario, and it's a completely free program. And everyone says, well, computers are complicated, I don't want to use it. It's such a simple program to use. And at the end of the day, it's not going to ask you for your important banking information. You don't need to put your credit card into it, anything like that. You're putting your name, you're putting the people you're choosing, and then it's going to generate the document for you. And you just have to go print it at your local library or at home and get your witnesses to sign it. You're going to have a physical document in hand, and that's just as legal as long as you've witnessed it correctly.
So when you're saying a witness, do they just sign at the bottom of this? Say it's, you know, it's all typed out and all the rest of it, and you signed it, and you have the 2 witnesses there to witness your signature. Do they just put their name at the bottom, or what do they do with this?
Yeah, so
How does
there's
that
going to
happen?
there'll be a line for them that actually
okay.
says witness number 1, witness
all
number
right,
2.
yeah.
They're going to sign, they're going to print their name, and they're going to put their address because we want to identify who these people are, right? No one, you don't want to have a document that says Minnie Mouse and Mickey Mouse at the bottom. You want a document that has 2 people who can actually be identified.
It's, you know, you think about all the legal components of this. It's really not as legalized, meaning that there's rules and rules and rules. It's pretty simple by the sounds of all of this.
Very simple, right?
Yeah.
It's complicated in the sense of people don't know about it, and there are lots of rules for what your attorney has to do, their responsibilities, how to fill them out. But at the end of the day, it can be as easy as a one-page document that just names who's the person I've picked, what are they in charge of,
Right.
and where do I sign, date with my witnesses.
And as we've said earlier, how important it is to have that done like as quickly as you can as you become an adult.
I think it is something to consider, right? When you're a young adult, you don't need to wait until you're married. You don't need to wait until you have a house or you have a certain amount of money in your bank account, right? If you have any property, if you have $5, it's a good idea to start considering it. The most important thing, though, is having someone you trust. What I don't want is people rushing to make the document and saying, well, I'm just going to name my brother. I haven't talked to him in 5 years,
Right.
but I'll just get it done. That's not what we want. We want you to do it only if you've got someone who you actually trust to step in. And if you don't, take your time, think about it, look at your options.
You use the word attorney here, because that's what it's called, a power of attorney. Where did that even come from? How did that work out?
Yeah, so I think attorney is, it's the American term for lawyer.
Right.
But here, attorney means essentially decision maker.
Oh,
so
all
when
right,
we're
yeah.
talking about making decisions, we have a legal term called substitute decision maker, which could be anyone who is allowed to make decisions for you, whether that's a guardian,
Right.
an attorney, or even someone under the Healthcare Consent Act. Attorney is just the person you've picked in your power of attorney. So it sounds fancy, but really it's just you saying, this is the person I've picked who has authority to make decisions.
Yeah, and that's a very good explanation of what it all is all about and everything. So thank you for that. And I think you don't really need a lawyer. So this is something that can be done at your kitchen table with a couple of friends and everything to sign it. And then you've got it in hand and all the rest of it. We're going to talk about in the next segment is a little bit about where you keep it, because I think those things are important. And if you don't, what happens at that point in time? So we'll do that as we're going along. And then the differences between personal and the health part of it, and then the part about the property, which is really, really important. They're very different, very different.
Very different.
And something that we need to know a little bit more about in regards to, and having two different people if you choose to want to do that as well. So when we're going through this, Megan, is this something that you as an individual recommend to people all the time?
I usually recommend to people, have your power of attorneys, because everyone contacts me and they say, I need a will. That's great, get your will in place, but do you also have your power of attorneys
Right.
in place, right? Make sure that's getting done, because again, this is someone who's going to make decisions for you if you end up very sick at a
Right.
young age or even sick at an older age. It's a very important document that's very easy to fill out, but if you don't have it, you could be stuck in a lurch. And anyone who has, maybe an older parent or has somebody in their family who has had to go through this, they'll know right away, oh yeah, it was a pain trying to access the bank account,
Yeah.
trying to make decisions, right? We were fighting. The power of attorney simplifies all of that and says, this is the person the bank
that's
needs to
in
listen
charge.
to. Yeah.
Well, we'll finish this off with a next segment. Well, we're finishing up our series about wills and powers of attorney. Megan Stuckey is our guest, and we're talking today about the powers of attorney. And early in the program, we talked about what you do with it and how you get it and all the rest of it. But where do you keep it in your house? Like what happens?
Yeah, I mean, it comes down to your family, who
Right.
you're living with, what your situation is, whether you have a safe place to put it. But your power of attorney should be in your possession, right? It's not something I recommend leaving with a lawyer. It's not something I recommend, giving to a neighbor. You keep it yourself,
Right.
and you keep it somewhere safe in your home, out of sight, but where your attorney can find it, because it's an emergency document.
Right.
So if you end up suddenly in hospital, your attorney needs to be able to get into your home, or unless they have a copy themselves, and find the document. So keep it with your legal documents.
Right.
Right?
Which is
Keep
a
it-
good idea, yes.
Yeah, somewhere that it's accessible but out of sight, so someone can't just take it from you. That's what we don't want.
No. Unfortunately, sometimes the person that you have as your power of attorney for either health or property, or both the same, or whatever. The point being is that they might pass away themselves, or for whatever reason you don't want them anymore. Can you change this on a regular basis, or
Absolutely. So at the end of the day, you have to be capable of
Okay.
making a document. And we won't go into the whole test, but the essential point is you need to understand what you own, what's going on, and what this person can do in order to sign the document. So as long as you're still capable, you can make a new power of attorney that names new people, or you can actually revoke your power of attorney that says, this person's been taking advantage of me. I don't want them to have access to my bank account anymore, so I'm just going to revoke the old power of attorney. I'm going to sign and witness a document, and it could be a single sentence you write down. I, Megan Stuckey, revoke my power of attorney that I signed on April 25th.
Right.
You sign, date it, 2 witnesses, and then you give it to your attorney, you give it to your bank, so everyone is on the same page
Yes.
of what's happening. And then you can make a new one later when you've picked a new person.
Should you, just picking up on what you said there, Megan, should you be giving your bank, like I make up a power of attorney decision on finance, et cetera, now, should I be giving the bank a copy of that at this point, or how do we do that?
Nowadays, banks want to see the copy directly from you. They don't want to be in a situation where you've ended up in hospital,
Right.
and then suddenly somebody's showing up saying, I'm the attorney, give
Yeah.
me access to the bank. They should trust that document if it's validly signed.
Right.
But we do find that they often want you to come in person yourself and show it to them.
Okay.
Now, power of attorneys for property can be a bit different because you could have one that's effective the day you sign it, in which case you don't need to be sick, you
Yeah.
don't need to be incapable, or you could have one that's only effective when you're incapable. So when you give it to the bank is up to you. If you're 20 years old, you might say, I don't really need to give this to my bank. I don't want someone having access to
Right.
this. I just need this in an emergency. If you're older and you've got someone who's starting to help you a bit more often, then you might say, let's take this to the bank now so they're aware of it.
Which is really, really important. And so you keep that at home and all the rest of it, and you can cancel and get a new person if you want as well. But one of the things is, I decide for whatever reason, I'm not going to have a power of attorney. I'm not doing this. What happens?
Well, it depends what kind of decision needs to be made.
Okay.
So if you have a health care emergency, in Ontario we have the Health Care Consent Act, which lays out a list of people who are allowed to make decisions for you. So you don't need a document in place. You end up in hospital, the first person on that list is your married spouse or your common law partner of 1 year. The doctors are going to call them. No spouse, we're down to your children, parents, brothers, sisters. We move down the family list, and they all have an equal right. So if you have 3 kids, they all get a right to make that decision if they're first on the list. They don't get to pick and choose who's the best
Whoa.
child.
But what if they don't agree?
If they don't agree, then the doctor can't get a decision from them. So that's why the power of attorney is so useful. It lets
Correct.
you pick the person
Yeah.
who's going to decide rather than having fighting. Now that list exists for healthcare decisions. That is not the case for property. If you end up sick or in hospital and you can't make your own property decisions, the bank is not going to say, oh, well, you're the children, we're going to give you access to the bank account. They're going to say, go get me a power of attorney or apply for guardianship. And those are your options. So you really do end up stuck. And that's where we see people who have not made a power of attorney. They're starting to have health issues. They've ended up in hospital, and people are scrambling because they can't pay the bills. They can't pay the rent. They can't manage anything. And the bank won't help them because legally speaking, no one actually has the right to access that
No.
account. It's yours.
Yeah.
So you need to have a document that you've either picked the person, or they have to get a capacity assessment of you. They have to pay for that. They have to go through court, get a guardianship application, and a month or 2 later, now someone can access the bank account.
So really, this is serious. I mean, this can be for whatever it is that you're doing and wanting to do, and you're lying there in a coma, and no one can make a decision for you.
It's quite serious, right?
Right.
And again, you can make that document and never use it. I don't recommend putting it under your mattress, but what I mean is you can place it away somewhere
Right.
for a rainy day, and you don't even have to tell your attorney if you don't want to. Just put it away, and then if you are getting sick or if you're worried, tell that person, hey, I've got this document, you can access it when you need it, but I'm not going to give you authority now.
No.
You've got it just in case.
And how important that is. So we can recommend that people really take on and do and have a will, as we mentioned in our previous program, and now having 2 powers of attorney and get it done now.
Yes.
Whatever age you're at, do it now kind of a thing.
Take the steps, look
Right.
into it. Don't worry about, I don't have $1,000 for a lawyer. Just start learning about it now. Find yourself that free kit. And if it feels right and you've got people, I recommend go ahead with it. And if it's not right, if you don't have people, then at least put some other plans in place in case you have an emergency.
We all are going to pass away at some point in time in life. That's part of what life is. So it's important that what we call advanced planning, and you do this. And unfortunately, you can pass away at any age. So it's something you need to do now.
Yes. Advanced care planning doesn't start when you're 85.
No.
Right? It starts when you're in your 40s or
Right.
your 50s, or even when you're in your 30s. You start thinking about what's going to happen to my property. Do I have some steps? Do people know what I want done? Do I
Right.
want to end up in a long-term care home? Do I want to go through amputations or other forms of
Right.
very invasive surgeries? You start having those conversations now, so that even if you don't have the power of attorney, at least people know what your goals were.
That's right. Megan, that's a wonderful way to end the program. Thank you very much. Megan Stuckey has been my guest for the two programs that we've had, one on wills and now here on the powers of attorney. So make sure that you take the time to look into both the wills and powers of attorney and make the decisions that are best for you. Megan, thank you very much. And we'll turn the program over to Linda DePiro for the 1-minute exercise.
Hi, I'm Linda DePiro. Here is an effective exercise technique to help ease knee pain or knee discomfort. So sitting upright in a sturdy chair, you're going to make a fist and you're going to use these knuckles, the bony knuckles, to massage and palpate the fascia tissue above, to the side, and below the knee, avoiding the kneecap, as there's a bursa sac in there, that it serves a purpose of protection, so we don't want to go into that. So start with the lower part of the quad muscle, which is quite thick. You can apply the pressure as accordingly. Coming down here, it might be a little bit more tender, and into the shin. And then I'm going to change to using my fingers, kind of palpating, digging in, kneading, right? And you can knead behind the knee as well, getting into the lower part of the hamstring, upper part of the calf muscle. And then using a different texture, these little soft balls, making little circles right on top, to the side, and the shin, which just gives you a little different feeling. And you can also squeeze behind, taking a hold of the shin here, and the foot I want you to place in a flat dorsiflexion. Windshield wiping, internal, external rotation at the ankle will encourage a little bit more synovial fluid. It feels a little awkward to do, but it's a very good movement. And the longer you can do this, the better. And you will notice that as you're holding the shin, you can feel with your hands the muscles and activity happening in the shin. So moving it a little bit more side to side, then stand up. Wow, you'll feel the difference right away. Add a couple knee bends. This side feels so energized, ready to take on the day. So anytime you feel your knees a little cranky, try this. See you next time.